Ambassador Marcus Webb had seen many impressive things in his life, but nothing prepared him for this moment. The transport ship carrying him dropped out of faster-than-light travel, and there it was. The Grand Tribunal Station hung in the void between three dying stars, a massive crystal sphere that seemed to capture and bend the light of all three suns into a rainbow of impossible colors. The station was larger than Earth's moon, built by civilizations that had mastered space travel before humans discovered fire. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. He was about to walk into the most powerful governing body in the known galaxy, and he was going alone. Earth had been part of the galactic community for only 5 years. 5 years of careful diplomacy, of following every rule, of trying to prove that humanity deserved a place among the stars. And now this, an emergency summons. No explanation, no warning. Just a message that humanity would stand before the Council to answer for crimes unspecified. The docking procedure took 20 minutes. Marcus used that time to review everything he knew about the Council. 300 species. Some had been traveling between stars for over 50,000 years. They had weapons that could crack planets, technology that seemed like magic, and they all agreed on one thing: humanity would be judged today. When the airlock opened, Marcus stepped into a corridor that seemed to stretch forever. The walls were transparent, showing the void outside. He could see other ships docking, carrying representatives from across the galaxy. None of them looked at him. None of them acknowledged his presence. That scared him more than any threat. A guide appeared, a floating sphere of light that spoke in perfect English. "Ambassador Webb, the Council is assembled. You will proceed to the judgment chamber. You will stand in the center. You will speak only when addressed. Do you understand?" Marcus nodded. His throat felt dry. The guide led him through passages that seemed to defy physics, turning corners that should not exist, walking through doorways that appeared and disappeared. Finally, they reached a set of massive doors that opened without sound. The judgment chamber took his breath away. It was a perfect sphere, maybe a kilometer across. The walls were transparent, showing the stars beyond. But what filled the sphere made Marcus feel smaller than he had ever felt in his life. Arranged in concentric rings that surrounded a central platform were the representatives of the Galactic Council. Hundreds of species. Thousands of individuals. Some looked almost human. Others were so alien that Marcus could not comprehend their basic shape. There were beings of pure energy contained in geometric patterns. Creatures that seemed to be made of living crystal. Things that looked like floating clouds with eyes. Insectoids the size of buildings. And all of them were watching him. The floating guide led him to the central platform and then vanished. Marcus stood alone in the center of the sphere, surrounded on all sides by alien judgment. The silence was absolute. He could hear his own heartbeat. Then a voice spoke. It came from everywhere at once, resonating through his bones. Humanity. "You stand before the Galactic Council." Marcus looked up and saw it. At the very top of the sphere, occupying a position of clear authority, was the eldest of the Vorathian collective. It looked like a geometric lattice of pure white energy, constantly shifting and reforming. This was the being that had guided the Council for over 20,000 years. "I am Ambassador Marcus Webb, representing Earth and humanity," Marcus said. His voice sounded small in the vast chamber, but it did not shake. He would not let them see fear. "We know who you are," the eldest replied. "We have been observing your species since you first achieved faster-than-light capability. We have studied your history. We have measured your potential, and we have reached a conclusion." Marcus waited. Around him, the alien representatives remained silent, but he could feel their attention like a physical weight. "You stand accused," the eldest continued, "of the greatest crime known to the Galactic Council." "The crime of potential," Marcus blinked. "I don't understand. What crime have we committed? We have followed every law, every regulation. We have submitted to inspections. We have paid our tribute. We have done everything asked of us." A new voice spoke. This one came from a creature that looked like it had 8 arms and a body covered in black scales. Marcus recognized it as Vex, a representative from the Calibri system. The creature's voice was sharp and accusatory. "Your confusion proves our point, human. You do not even understand the danger you represent." Holographic displays appeared around Marcus, filling the air with images. He saw Earth's history played out in fast motion, wars, thousands of them, weapons development, the rise and fall of empires, nuclear explosions, biological weapons, chemical warfare. The images were brutal and undeniable. In 6,000 years of recorded history, Vex continued, your species has engaged in 12,000 distinct military conflicts. You have developed weapons capable of destroying your own world 17 times over. Your capacity for organized violence exceeds every known species by a factor of 47. You are, by every measurable standard, the most aggressive species to ever achieve space travel. We came in peace, Marcus said, but even as he spoke the words, he knew how hollow they sounded. Peace, the eldest said, and there was something in its tone that might have been sad or might have been cold calculation, is a luxury that the galaxy cannot afford to gamble on with your species. The Council has existed for 200,000 years. We have maintained balance. We have prevented galactic war. We have protected the weak and controlled the strong. And we will not allow humanity to upset that balance. The holographic displays changed. Now Marcus saw something different. He saw graphs and charts that tracked technological development, and he saw something that made his blood run cold. Every species in the Council had developed technology in a smooth, predictable curve. They reached certain milestones at certain times. They progressed steadily and slowly. But humanity's line was different. It curved upward exponentially, accelerating faster and faster. In just 150 years, another voice spoke, this one belonging to a crystalline being that refracted light as it moved. Humans went from the first powered flight to landing on your moon. In another 50 years, you achieved quantum computing. Your rate of technological advancement is increasing exponentially, while every other species maintains linear growth. Do you understand what this means? Marcus did understand. He understood perfectly. The Council was not judging humanity for what it had done. They were judging humanity for what it might become. If left unchecked, the eldest said, our projections show that within 500 years, humanity will surpass the combined technological capability of every other species in the Council. You will become, by simple mathematics, the dominant force in the galaxy, and your history of violence makes that outcome unacceptable. Marcus felt anger rising in his chest, pushing past the fear. So you are punishing us for crimes we have not committed? For a future that has not happened? We are preventing a catastrophe, Vex replied. The Council has reached a unanimous decision. Humanity will be restricted. Your expansion into space will be halted immediately. Your population will be reduced to 5 billion individuals through mandatory birth control. Your technology will be inspected and regulated. Any development of military capabilities beyond frigate-class vessels will result in immediate sanctions. These restrictions will remain in place indefinitely. And if we refuse? Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. The eldest's energy form pulsed with light. Then humanity will be sterilized. Every human world will be quarantined behind quantum barriers. You will be isolated from the galaxy forever. Your species will live out its existence trapped in your own solar system, unable to communicate with or travel to any other star. You will die alone in the dark. The chamber remained silent. 300 species waited for humanity's response. Marcus looked around at the assembled aliens. He saw contempt in some faces, fear in others, but mostly he saw certainty. They had already decided. This trial was just a formality. You are afraid? Marcus said quietly. Yes, the eldest replied without hesitation. We are afraid of what you might become. Marcus was given 72 hours to return to Earth and present the Council's ultimatum to humanity. As his ship prepared to leave the station, he stood at a viewport and watched the massive crystal sphere shrink into the distance. Somewhere in that structure, 300 species celebrated their decision to protect themselves from humanity. But Marcus knew something they did not. Humans had a saying, the only thing more dangerous than a strong enemy was a cornered one, and the Council had just cornered all of humanity. The journey back to Earth took 3 days through faster-than-light corridors, but Marcus barely slept. He spent the time reviewing the Council's demands over and over, looking for some loophole, some way to make this work. There was none. The restrictions were absolute. Accept genetic modification to reduce aggression. Accept population controls. Accept technological oversight. accept permanent inferiority, or accept extinction. When his ship finally entered Earth's solar system, Marcus felt a wave of emotion he had not expected: relief. Despite everything, despite the threat hanging over humanity, he was home. The blue and white sphere of Earth grew larger in his viewport, and for a moment, he let himself forget about the Council and their ultimatum. That moment ended when Earth's defense grid locked onto his ship with enough firepower to vaporize a small moon. They had been expecting him. The United Earth Assembly convened within hours of his landing. Representatives from every nation on Earth gathered in the Great Hall in Geneva, along with delegates from the lunar colonies and the Mars settlements. The room was packed. Everyone wanted to hear what the Council had decided. Marcus stood at the central podium and told them everything. He did not soften the words. He did not try to make it sound better than it was. The Council feared humanity, and fear had made them cruel. The debate that followed was fierce. Some argued for immediate acceptance. They were one species against 300. They had no chance in a military confrontation. Better to survive diminished than to die proud. Others argued for defiance. Humanity had not clawed its way up from the mud of Earth to bow before alien masters. If the Council wanted war, they would get war. The arguments went on for hours, circling around and around the same points. Accept or fight. Survival or pride. The future or the grave. Then the second message arrived. It came during a public broadcast. The Council had arranged a galaxy-wide transmission, meant to show the other species that humanity was being treated fairly and generously. The Varathian eldest appeared on screens across Earth and every human settlement. People of Earth, the eldest said, its energy form pulsing with what might have been meant as warmth. We understand this is difficult for you, but please know that we do not hate you. We simply cannot allow you to remain as you are. Your nature is too volatile, too dangerous to yourselves and others. A human journalist, a woman named Rita Park, broadcasting from the Council station, asked the question that changed everything. Eldest, why is humanity specifically facing these restrictions? Other species have violent histories. Why are we different? The eldest's response was immediate and, from its perspective, reassuring. You must understand humans. We have offered this choice to 7 other species throughout our long history, those who showed similar dangerous potential, and all of them accepted our guidance. They chose survival and peace over chaos and uncertainty. We modified their psychology, removed the aggressive and competitive elements that made them threats, and now they are happy, productive members of the galactic community. The eldest paused, its form shifting as if considering how to phrase something delicate. Think of it as evolution guided by wisdom rather than random chance. After all, if you remove the aggressive, competitive, and ambitious aspects of your psychology, what remains will be far more compatible with galactic society. You will be happier, more peaceful. You will fit in better with your neighbors. No more war, no more conflict, no more struggle, just harmony. So we ask you, humanity, will you stay if we undress you of these dangerous elements? Will you accept paradise at the cost of being merely less human? The broadcast ended. For a moment, absolute silence filled the assembly hall. Then someone laughed. It was a bitter, angry sound that broke the quiet like shattering glass. Within seconds, others joined in. Not the laughter of joy, but the laughter of people who had just heard something so insulting, so fundamentally wrong, that words failed them. Did they just ask if we will stay if they undress us? A delegate from Brazil asked, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. The phrase spread like wildfire. Within minutes, it was trending across every social media platform on Earth. Within an hour, it had been translated into 800 languages and was being discussed in colony ships, space stations, and remote outposts. Will you stay if we undress you? Became humanity's rallying cry, not because it was inspiring, but because it perfectly captured the Council's contempt. They wanted to strip humanity of everything that made them human and then expected gratitude for the privilege. The next speaker to address the assembly was not a politician or a general. It was an elderly woman named Maria Torres, a retired teacher from Argentina. She had lost 3 sons in Earth's last major war, the resource conflicts that had nearly torn South America apart 30 years ago. She walked slowly to the podium, leaning on a cane, and when she spoke, her voice was soft but clear. "I hated war," she said. "It took my boys from me. Miguel was 23. Carlos was 26. And my baby, Roberto, he was only 19. They died fighting over water rights, over land, over stupid pride. I spent years wondering if anything they died for mattered, if their sacrifice meant anything at all." She paused, looking out at the assembled representatives. "But now I understand. They died with courage. They died believing they were fighting for something important. That courage, that fire to stand up for what you believe in, even when it costs everything, that is what makes us human. The Council wants to take that away. They want to remove our aggression, our competition, our ambition. But you cannot separate those things. The same fire that makes us fight is the fire that makes us survive. The same competition that drives us to war also drives us to excel. The same ambition that leads to conflict also leads to hope for a better tomorrow." Maria's voice grew stronger. "They ask if we will stay if they undress us of what makes us human. I say no, we will not stay. We will not accept their paradise because it is not paradise. It is death by another name. We will not bow. We will not surrender. And if they force us to fight, then we will show them exactly why they were right to fear us." The assembly hall erupted. Delegates were on their feet, shouting, arguing, demanding to be heard. But underneath the chaos, Marcus could feel something shifting. The anger was crystallizing into something harder, something united. The vote came that night. The United Earth Assembly rejected the Council's ultimatum by a margin of 93%. But they did not declare war. Instead, they proposed a compromise. Give humanity 50 years to prove they could coexist with the galaxy without modification. Allow them to demonstrate that their aggression could be controlled, their competition channeled into peaceful pursuits. The Council's response arrived in less than an hour. The answer was no. 50 years was too long. Humanity could develop too much in that time. The restrictions would be imposed immediately, or the Sol system would be sealed. The eldest's final statement was broadcast across all channels. "The Council fleet will enter your system in 30 days. You will have one final opportunity to reconsider. If by the time of our arrival you still refuse compliance, we will implement the quarantine. You will have your independence, humans. You will be completely isolated. No ship will enter or leave your system. You will never speak to another species again. You will grow old and die knowing that the stars are filled with life you can never touch. This is your last chance. Choose wisely." The broadcast ended, leaving humanity with an impossible decision. Accept genetic modification and lose what made them human. Accept eternal isolation and lose their future. Or fight a war they could not possibly win. That night, Admiral Jackson Cole called an emergency meeting of Earth's top military commanders and scientists. The room was buried 3 kilometers under the Swiss Alps, shielded from every known form of surveillance. When everyone was assembled, Cole asked the only question that mattered. "Can we win?" The silence stretched for a long moment. Then a young physicist named Dr. Yuki Tanaka stood up. She was barely 30 years old, brilliant and intense, and she had been working on classified projects for the last 3 years. She pulled up a holographic display that showed weapon designs, power systems, and theoretical physics equations that most people in the room could not begin to understand. "Maybe," she said, "but only if we are willing to show them exactly why they should have feared us from the beginning. Only if we are willing to do things the Council would never imagine. Only if we stop trying to be acceptable to them and start being ourselves. Completely ourselves." Cole looked at the designs she was showing. Some were brilliant. Some were terrifying. All of them were dangerous. "How long?" he asked. "We have 30 days before their fleet arrives," Tanaka replied. "I can have the primary systems operational in 29. Cole nodded slowly. Then he looked around the room at the assembled leaders of humanity's defense forces. "We all know what we are choosing here. This is not a war we should be able to win. The math says we should lose. Every projection says we should be destroyed. But math does not account for desperation, and projections do not account for the fact that we have nothing left to lose." He stood up, his decision made. "Prepare for war, and may whatever gods exist have mercy on us all, because the galaxy will not." The Council fleet arrived exactly on schedule, dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system precisely 30 days after their ultimatum. 12,000 warships materialized in the darkness beyond Neptune, a force so massive that it dimmed the stars behind it. The fleet represented 70 different species, each contributing their most advanced military vessels. Dreadnoughts the size of cities, carrier ships that launched waves of fighters, siege vessels equipped with weapons designed to crack planetary shields. It was the largest military force assembled in over 10,000 years of galactic history. Admiral Jackson Cole watched from Earth's orbital command center as the enemy fleet began its advance. The tactical display showed a sea of red icons moving steadily inward, maintaining perfect formation, their weapons charging as they crossed into the outer system. They moved with confidence, with certainty. They believed this would be over quickly. Cole opened a communication channel that broadcast across all frequencies, ensuring every ship in the Council fleet would hear him. "This is Admiral Cole of Earth Defense Command. You have entered our system uninvited. You have threatened our people. You have demanded we surrender our identity or face extinction. I want you to understand something before this begins. We know why you fear us, and we are going to show you that you were right." He closed the channel and looked at his staff. "Light them up." The first Council ship to fire its weapons was a Varathian cruiser. It launched a plasma lance, a beam of superheated matter that could vaporize a mountain, directly at one of Earth's orbital defense platforms. The weapon was precise, powerful, and absolutely certain to destroy its target. The beam missed, not by much. Just a few meters. But in space warfare, a miss was a miss. The Varathian captain fired again, and again. Each shot should have been a guaranteed hit, but somehow the targeting data was wrong. The platform was exactly where sensors said it should be, but the weapons could not connect. "All ships reporting similar issues," a Council fleet coordinator broadcast. Targeting systems showing location discrepancies. What they did not understand was that Dr. Tanaka's team had cracked a breakthrough in quantum mechanics. Human defense platforms were not protected by traditional shields. Instead, they were wrapped in probability fields. The platforms existed in a state of quantum uncertainty, slightly out of phase with normal space. Weapons could detect them, but hitting them was another matter. Not impossible, but unlikely enough that most shots simply failed to connect. It was technology. The Council had never imagined because they had stopped pushing the boundaries of physics millennia ago, but the real surprise came when the moon lit up like a second sun. The lunar surface, which Council scans had identified as a minor mining operation, suddenly revealed its true purpose. Hundreds of massive electromagnetic launchers emerged from hidden bunkers, each one capable of accelerating tungsten rods to a significant fraction of light speed. The first salvo turned 12 Council capital ships into expanding clouds of debris before their captains even realized they were under attack. Cole's voice returned to the communication channels. "You asked if we would stay if you undressed us. You thought you were being clever, using our language to humiliate us. But what you did was show us your hand. You revealed your tactics, your technology, your doctrine. You came here so certain of your superiority that you forgot the first rule of war. Never underestimate your enemy." The Council fleet attempted to regroup, but human tactics were nothing like they expected. Earth's warships did not engage in the traditional formation warfare that the Council had perfected over thousands of years. Instead, human vessels moved like a swarm of insects, coordinating through quantum-encrypted networks, striking from unexpected angles, and then disappearing behind planetary bodies and asteroid fields. Small human corvettes released nanite clouds that corrupted enemy sensor arrays, making entire sections of the Council fleet effectively blind. Cyber warfare teams injected false data into Council targeting systems, causing friendly fire incidents as ships fired on what they thought were human vessels, but were actually their own allies. Human pilots flew in patterns that seemed suicidal, threading through debris fields and using the wreckage of destroyed ships as cover. The battle raged for 6 hours. When a temporary lull settled over the combat zone, the casualty reports were staggering. The Council fleet had lost 4,000 ships. Earth had lost 73 defense platforms and 18 corvettes. The galaxy watched the footage in stunned silence. Humanity was not just defending itself. It was winning, but the Council's response was swift and brutal. The Varathian eldest addressed the entire galaxy, its energy form pulsing with cold fury. "This changes nothing. Humanity has merely proven our fears were justified. They are too dangerous to exist. We are dispatching the Purifier fleet, 400,000 warships carrying the full might of the Council's military power. They will arrive in Seoul within 60 days. There will be no blockade this time, no isolation, no mercy. Earth will be sterilized, and humanity will become nothing more than a cautionary tale for future species. The broadcast ended, leaving no room for negotiation. The Council had committed to genocide. In the assembly hall, Marcus looked at the collected representatives of humanity and spoke the words everyone was thinking. We cannot just defend anymore. We proved we can hurt them, but we cannot survive 400,000 ships. If we are going to live, we need to do more than fight back. We need to go on the offensive. We need to declare war on the entire galaxy. The declaration of war sent shockwaves through every inhabited system. No single species had ever challenged the Council's collective might. It was beyond suicidal. It was incomprehensible. But humanity's strategy became clear within days. Human strike teams began appearing in systems across the galaxy, thousands of light years from Earth. They did not attack military targets. They attacked infrastructure. Communication relays went dark. Supply depots exploded. Trade routes dissolved into chaos. And most critically, humanity targeted the economic networks that held the Council together. The Varathians woke up one morning to discover their entire banking system had been infiltrated. Human artificial intelligence had been quietly learning their financial networks for months. In a single coordinated strike, centuries of records vanished. Trade agreements collapsed. The economy of 12 systems entered freefall within a week. The Calibri found their military academies under siege, not from weapons but from information. Human hackers broadcast classified files showing that the Council had known about threats beyond the galaxy for years and had chosen to suppress the information rather than prepare their people. Trust began to fracture. A human operative named Thomas Reed appeared before the Pixian Assembly, representing one of the prey species that made up 40% of Council membership. He presented evidence that the Council's regulations were not applied equally. Predator species received advanced weapons under the guise of peacekeeping. Prey species were kept deliberately weak, told it was for their own protection. We are not your enemy, Reed told them. The Council is? They have kept you weak, kept you dependent, kept you afraid. Humanity is fighting for the right to exist as we are. But what we are really fighting for is the right of every species to determine its own fate. Join us or just step aside. But stop helping the powers that have enslaved you. 16 prey species, led by the Pixians, declared neutrality within the week. They withdrew from the Council, taking 80,000 ships out of the Purifier fleet before it even launched. More cracks appeared in the Council's unity. Younger species, those who had joined in the last 1,000 years, began questioning why they should die defending an order that benefited the ancient species more than themselves. Human propaganda spread through galactic networks like wildfire. Not just information, but art, music, stories that asked simple questions. Who benefits from the Council's control? Who suffers? Why fight to maintain a hierarchy that keeps most species powerless? Meanwhile, Earth prepared for the inevitable. Every asteroid in the Sol system was converted into a weapon. Mars was transformed into a fortress. Humanity pulled back every resource from beyond their home system and turned Sol into the most heavily defended location in the galaxy. Admiral Cole unveiled the centerpiece of Earth's final defense. They called it the Ragnarok Protocol. If Earth fell, if humanity was destroyed, automated systems would launch clouds of self-replicating nanites into the galaxy. Not to kill because that would make them monsters, but to transform. The nanites would slowly, over centuries, convert every planet, every structure, every ship into environments suitable for human life. The Council could destroy humanity, but they would spend the next 1,000,000 years fighting machines that would never stop trying to terraform the galaxy for humans who no longer existed. It was mutually assured destruction on a scale that made nuclear weapons look like fireworks. The Varathian eldest personally contacted Marcus with a final offer. This is madness. We will both be destroyed. Agree to leave the galaxy. Take your ships, your people, your colonies, and go beyond our borders. We will give you coordinates to habitable worlds in the void between galaxies. The Battle of Sol lasted 17 days. the longest continuous military engagement in recorded galactic history. The Purifier fleet arrived with 320,000 ships after the defections from prey species. They materialized at the system's edge in a formation so vast, it took up a volume of space larger than most star systems. Every council species that remained loyal had contributed vessels. Dreadnoughts that massed more than small moons. Carriers that could deploy 1,000-ship fighter wings. Siege platforms equipped with antimatter torpedoes and quantum disruptors. It was enough firepower to sterilize 100 worlds. Earth's defenders numbered just under 5,000 vessels, supported by 200,000 automated defense platforms scattered throughout the system. By every measure, every calculation, every simulation, humanity should have been obliterated in hours. But humanity did not fight by the galaxy's calculations. The first 3 days were brutal attrition. Human commanders traded ships ruthlessly, sacrificing vessels to destroy council ships at 5-to-1 ratios. It was a losing exchange by traditional warfare standards, but traditional warfare assumed both sides valued their units equally. The Council fleet had ships to spare. Earth had everything to lose. Defense platforms died by the hundreds, but each one took enemy vessels with it. The asteroid weapon systems fired until their electromagnetic rails melted from the heat. Human pilots flew missions that had zero chance of survival, ramming damaged fighters into council cruisers when they ran out of ammunition. By the end of Day 3, Earth's fleet was reduced to 2,000 ships. But the Purifier fleet had lost 90,000 vessels. The mathematics still favored the Council, but the rate of loss was unsustainable. Council commanders began questioning their orders. They had expected an easy victory, a quick demonstration of overwhelming force. Instead, they were bleeding ships and crews in a grinding battle of attrition against an enemy that refused to break. Admiral Cole broadcast a message on Day 5, making sure every ship in both fleets could hear him. "You fight to win. We fight to survive. You follow 1,000-year-old doctrine. We adapt every hour. You calculate acceptable losses. We see our families burning. Every human in this system knows that if we fall, humanity ends. Can any of you say the same about your commitment?" The message resonated in ways the Council had not anticipated. Some captains began showing hesitation. A few ships retreated without authorization. The unified fleet started fragmenting into species-based battle groups, each with slightly different priorities and risk tolerances. On Day 9, something impossible happened. A council captain named Vorn, commanding a Hixian battle group of 43 ships, broadcast a message directly to Admiral Cole. "Human Commander, I have been monitoring your defensive patterns. You are correct. I fight to follow orders. My crew fights because they were told to. But none of us truly believe in this genocide. The Council claims you are too dangerous, but I have reviewed your history. Yes, you wage war, but you also make peace with your enemies. You rebuild what you destroy. You help those you once fought. My species lost a war with the Varathians 8,000 years ago. They still occupy our homeworld. Where is our peace? Where is our rebuilding?" Vorn's voice grew stronger. "The Council speaks of an extragalactic threat that approaches. They plan to hide, to seem primitive and weak. But I would rather die fighting beside humans who stand against extinction than live as prey waiting to be consumed. My battle group is withdrawing. We will not fight you anymore." The announcement sent shockwaves through both fleets. Within 6 hours, 5 more battle groups followed Vorn's example. Not to join humanity, many were not ready for that step, but to refuse participation in the genocide. 23,000 ships broke formation and jumped out of the system. The Varathian eldest made a final desperate play. They activated weapons that the Council had sworn never to use again after they nearly destroyed themselves in ancient civil wars. Planet killers, devices that could crack a world's core and turn it into an expanding debris field. 3 were fired at Earth. Every human in the system watched as the missiles streaked toward their homeworld. Interceptors tried to stop them, but the weapons had shields designed to survive anything. They would reach Earth in 4 minutes, and when they detonated, the planet would die. Dr. Tanaka activated the last secret humanity had been holding in reserve. Every major human settlement, Every orbital platform, every ship in the system had been equipped with experimental Alcubierre displacement drives. They were not practical for conventional space travel because the energy requirements were astronomical. But for a single moment, for 3 seconds, they could move an entire planet into a parallel quantum state. Earth blinked. For 3 seconds, the planet and everything in its orbit shifted into a state of quantum superposition. The planet killers passed through the space where Earth should have been and detonated in empty void. When Earth returned to normal space, the blast waves had already dissipated. The galaxy watched in absolute silence as humanity demonstrated technology that violated everything the Council thought was possible. The Varathian eldest finally understood. Humanity was not more violent than other species. They were more desperate. And desperation bred innovation faster than comfort ever could. Enough, the eldest broadcast across all channels. The Council concedes. We cannot destroy you without destroying ourselves. Humanity will not be restricted, modified, or eliminated. You have earned the right to exist as you are. But Marcus's response shocked every species listening. No, we do not accept your surrender. This was never just about our survival. This is about the lie you have been living for 200,000 years. You have maintained peace through fear and control. You have crushed any species that showed potential, all to maintain your power. That ends now. The Council will be dissolved, Marcus continued. Every species will have true independence. And when that entity beyond the galaxy arrives, we will face it together as equals, or we will die as equals. There will be no more hierarchy, no more prey and predator, no more ancient species ruling over young ones. The old order is finished. The galaxy trembled on the edge of revolution. Over the next weeks, the political structure of galactic civilization collapsed and reformed. The Galactic Council was restructured into the Free Species Alliance, where no single species held veto power. Prey species, freed from mandatory restrictions, began developing their own militaries and technologies. Younger species gained access to knowledge that had been gatekept for millennia, and humanity began preparing for the real war, the one against the Devourer approaching from beyond the galaxy's edge. Marcus stood in the rebuilt Grand Tribunal Station, now called the Alliance Hall. The chamber looked different. Instead of ranked seating that reflected power and status, representatives sat in a circle. Equals at Pix, the Pixian junior council member who had first warned Marcus about the conspiracy, approached him. The small creature looked up at the human with something like wonder. You have changed everything. The galaxy will never be the same. Marcus looked at the thousands of species now talking, debating, sharing ideas without hierarchy. The council asked if we would stay if they undressed us. They meant it as humiliation, stripping us of what makes us human so we could join their stagnant peace. But they showed us what they really were. Cowards hiding behind authority, so afraid of change that they would rather maintain comfortable stagnation than face hard truths. And when the Devourer arrives? Pix asked quietly. When the real test comes? Marcus smiled, but it was not a happy expression. Then we will see if we are strong enough together. But at least we will face it as free beings, not slaves. The Council never understood that humanity does not want to rule the galaxy. We just want to make sure no one else does either. Deep in space, at the very edge of the galaxy, automated probes detected something massive moving through the void. The Devourer was ahead of schedule. It would arrive not in 10 years, but in 5. But now, instead of 300 species hiding and hoping to be overlooked, there were 300 species preparing to fight. And humanity had given them something they had lost millennia ago. Hope that they could win. The warning came at 0347 hours. Earth Standard Time. Deep Space Observation. Posts at the galaxy's edge detected massive gravitational distortions moving through the void at impossible speeds. Dr. Yuki Tanaka was yanked from sleep by emergency alerts. Screaming through her neural interface, she stumbled into the command center still wearing her sleep clothes, her mind struggling to process what the sensors were showing her. It's here, she whispered. 5 years early. The Devourer is here. Admiral Jackson Cole was already at his station, having never really left since the Battle of Saul ended 3 months ago. He pulled up the tactical display and felt his blood turn to ice. The entity was not a single ship or even a fleet. It was a cloud of darkness that stretched across light years, consuming everything in its path. Stars winked out as it passed over them. Entire solar systems simply ceased to exist. "Get me the Alliance," Cole ordered. "All species. Emergency protocol. Tell them we have hours, not days." The Free Species Alliance had been preparing for this moment, but preparation meant nothing when faced with the reality. The Devourer moved through space like a plague, spreading tendrils of destruction that defied every law of physics. It did not use weapons or technology that anyone could identify. It simply unmade matter wherever it touched. Marcus Webb stood in the Alliance Hall watching representatives from 300 species receive the news. Panic spread through the chamber like wildfire. Some species immediately called for evacuation, wanting to flee to the opposite end of the galaxy. Others froze in terror, unable to process the scale of the threat. A few, mostly the prey species who had lived their entire existence in fear of something, accepted their doom with quiet resignation. "We need to fight," Marcus said, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Running will not save us. The Devourer does not stop. It does not negotiate. It consumes. Our only chance is to face it together." "With what?" a Calibri representative demanded. "We have ships, yes. Weapons, yes. But that thing out there, it's not a fleet we can battle. It's a force of nature. You cannot fight entropy itself." Marcus looked at the creature with absolute certainty. "Then we will find a way to do the impossible. Because that is what humanity does best." The Alliance fleet assembled in record time. 240,000 ships from across the galaxy converged on the Devourer's projected path. It was an unprecedented show of unity. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years flew side by side. Ancient civilizations worked alongside younger races. The fleet represented every form of technology, every tactical doctrine, every scientific advancement the galaxy had achieved in 200,000 years. It was the most powerful military force ever assembled. And everyone knew it would not be enough. The Devourer reached the first inhabited system 4 days after being detected. The Kelrath system, home to 6 billion people across 3 planets. The Alliance fleet arrived 2 hours before the Devourer, giving them just enough time to evacuate 10% of the population. The rest watched from their worlds as the darkness approached. Every weapon in the fleet fired simultaneously. Antimatter torpedoes, plasma lances, quantum disruptors, graviton beams, and weapons so exotic they did not have names in most languages. Enough firepower to vaporize 1,000 planets struck the Devourer's leading edge. Nothing happened. The darkness absorbed every attack like light falling into a black hole. It did not slow down. It did not change course. It simply continued advancing. Then it touched the first planet. The world did not explode or burn. It simply stopped existing. One moment it was there, visible on every sensor. The next moment there was nothing. Not debris, not radiation. Just empty space where a planet should have been. 6 billion people ceased to exist in an instant. The fleet retreated, racing ahead of the advancing darkness. In the command ship, representatives from every major species convened in emergency session. They had thrown everything at the Devourer and accomplished nothing. Despair settled over the meeting like a heavy blanket. "We need a new approach," Admiral Cole said. "Everything we know about warfare is useless here. We need to think differently." Dr. Tanaka had been running calculations non-stop since the Devourer appeared. She had analyzed every piece of data, every sensor reading, every failed attack. And she had found something. A pattern. "It's not alive," she said suddenly, interrupting the debate. "It's not intelligent in any way we understand. It's more like a natural phenomenon, a tear in reality itself. The Dracor Imperium fell because they tried to fight it like an enemy. But you cannot fight a storm with weapons. You have to redirect it or dissipate it." "How?" Marcus asked. Tanaka pulled up her findings. The Devourer moves along gravitational gradients. It flows toward mass concentrations like water flowing downhill. That's why it targets solar systems. The gravity wells of stars attract it. But if we could create a stronger gradient, something more attractive than a star, we could redirect it away from inhabited space. "Create something more massive than a star?" a Varathian scientist said incredulously. "That is impossible." "Not more massive," Tanaka corrected. "More dense. A singularity, A black hole positioned at the edge of the galaxy could act as a gravity anchor, pulling the devourer away from our space and into the intergalactic void. The room fell silent as scientists from dozens of species processed the implications. Creating an artificial black hole was theoretically possible, but it required more energy than most civilizations produced in a century, and it had to be done perfectly. A mistake would create a black hole that would consume the galaxy from within instead of saving it. "We have the energy," Cole said slowly. "If every species contributes their full output, every reactor, every power plant, every energy source in the galaxy focused on a single point, it would take 3 weeks to coordinate," another voice added. "We have days at most." Marcus looked at the assembled representatives. "Then we have no choice. We work faster than should be possible. We coordinate better than we ever have. Or we die, all of us, together." The next 72 hours were the most intense period of cooperation in galactic history. Every species contributed technology and expertise. The Varathians provided the theoretical framework for stable singularity formation. The Calibri engineered the containment fields. Prey species who had been kept weak by the Old Council revealed hidden technologies they had developed in secret, and humans coordinated it all, their recent experience managing chaos and adapting to impossible situations proving invaluable. The Devourer consumed 6 more systems while they worked. 30 billion people died watching the darkness approach, but their sacrifice bought time. On the 4th day, the gravity anchor was ready, a massive structure positioned at the galaxy's edge, powered by the combined output of 300 civilizations. When they activated it, the energy surge was visible across half the galaxy. Space itself warped around the singularity. An artificial black hole stabilized at precisely calculated mass and rotation, and most importantly, it created a gravitational gradient stronger than anything in the surrounding space. The Devourer sensed the change immediately. Its advance slowed. The tendrils of darkness that had been reaching toward populated systems began bending, curving toward the singularity. It was working, but not fast enough. The Devourer was still close enough to inhabited space that its mere presence was causing gravitational disruptions. Planets were being pulled from their orbits. Stars were destabilizing. "They needed more time, more distance. We need to feed it," Dr. Tanaka said quietly. "Give it something to consume that will pull it faster toward the singularity." She did not need to explain what she meant. Everyone in the command center understood. The Devourer fed on mass and energy. If they gave it something substantial to consume, something between its current position and the singularity, it would move faster. Marcus looked at the tactical display showing fleet positions. "We would need to sacrifice ships, a lot of them. Or we could use something already dead," Vorn said. The Hixian captain who had defected during the Battle of Sol stepped forward. "There is a dead star cluster 30 light-years from the Devourer's current position, directly along the path to the singularity. 50 collapsed stars, dense matter but no life. If we could destabilize them, create a series of supernovas, the energy release would be massive. It was dangerous. Triggering multiple supernovas simultaneously could create a chain reaction that might spread to living systems. But the alternative was certain destruction. The Alliance fleet moved into position. Every ship equipped with heavy weapons targeted the dead stars. When Admiral Cole gave the order, they fired everything. The collapsed stars, already unstable, absorbed the energy and began cascading into catastrophic detonation. 50 supernovas erupted across the dead cluster. The combined energy release was brighter than the galactic core, and the Devourer, attracted to the massive gravitational and energy fluctuations, turned fully toward the dying stars. It consumed the supernovas greedily, pulling the energy into itself. And in doing so, it moved exactly where the Alliance needed it to go. The Singularity's gravity well caught the Devourer fully, and for the first time since it entered the galaxy, the entity began retreating. Slowly at first, then faster, pulled inexorably toward the artificial black hole.